take no more games.
You on that one, my man.
Okay, Tuesday edition of the After Show. Got Wink and Justice with you. Wink over here on the East Coast.
And Justice over here on the west coast of the contiguous United States of America. It is, Red Sky at Morning Tuesday, and that means that if there's a storm a brewing, well,
Yeah.
not if, there is a storm a brewing
Yeah.
somewhere
Right.
on the horizon.
Yeah.
All right. Be warned. All right. How you doing, Wink?
Not bad. Not bad. It is 52 dry. It's not raining today, which is good. That's always good. But it's 52 to 54 is going to be about the high for us. So we're about at the high right now. So not going to be a very warm day, but at least it's a decent day out there. Mind to get in the chat. Just go to netrootsradio.com. Scroll down the bottom of the page, and on the right-hand side of the bottom of the page, there is a link to the chat. So click that. Join us there.
And we do appreciate your generosity in punching those donate buttons to the
Yep.
leftish of the chat room link at the bottom of the homepage. We continue in our mini fund drive to garner funds so that we can upgrade hardware and software. And as you know, the resistance doesn't come free.
Exactly.
And I think we're suffering what we did in our lives.
Yeah. It must be. Yeah.
That's why we have to have the care
Yeah.
now. And apparently we lived wanton, lascivious lives, and now we should suffer the consequences. But thank you. That damn, I I often rue the fact that they couldn't turn me, Weak. They tried my whole life, right wingers, the commies who are now right wingers.
Right.
It's amazing. The commies are now right wingers, and the right wingers are still right wingers. So maybe the right wingers beat commies.
Yeah. Could be.
But they're now in cahoots, and they all tried to turn me, and I couldn't be turned. And in the process, you know what I've suffered? Well, financial, I wouldn't say uncertainty, but certainly not largesse. The prosperity gospel didn't bestow its abundance on me, so I must have done something wrong. And you know what that is? Being a liberal.
Yeah.
You can't make money being a liberal, but if so I often rue that. God, I wish I could have been turned. I'd be pretty well off right now.
There you go.
Damn. And I'd have no moral center, so I wouldn't feel bad about it.
Right.
And I would have such, even though I'd have all those largesse, I'd have such a small life that I would pass judgment on all these other people because, I have no life. And so therefore I have to criticize other people.
Exactly.
All right. Well. Here along the banks of the Rogue River in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon, it is currently 55 degrees. We are going to go up to 78, mostly cloudy, which is okay. In a way, I should check the humidity. I don't. Oh, yes. Here we go. 84%.
Yeah.
Ooh. Well, I will be building the metal shed today. Got the platform, the pavers put down, and
Yep.
On the sand bed. First we had 3/4 minus, box that in, then threw some quarter minus on top of that, to kind of fill the voids a little bit, and then threw down leveling sand and put the pavers down, and then swept paver sand that has a slight polymer on it and rinse that in. Throw another bit of that paver sand on, sweep it in, mist it, walk away, done.
Ah, nice.
Of course, I didn't have to do it. Thank God, man.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's
I
a
used
nice
to love
process,
doing
though.
that. I used to love doing that, and I did
Right.
in about the time that the young fellow did it here. But good for him.
Yeah.
You know, he's strapping.
Oh, heck yeah.
And today, of course, it takes two hands to put the shed together, so I can do that.
There you go.
It's going to be 90 tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then and a bit clearer, so it won't be as humid. Though it will. Oh, you know what? I should check because I think it will be a bit humid because on Thursday it'll then drop down to 88, but thunderstorms and thunder showers.
Right.
Oh, we did have sort of a bit of a tropical rain yesterday. It only lasted for maybe, I don't know, a minute or so, but they were huge drops, just like the kind you'd get in Hawaii on the beach. And a lot of people, you know, have never been to Hawaii. As soon as that happens, you know, they run into the lobby. Oh my God. But seasoned pros, sometimes they put up an umbrella and stay on the beach, and sometimes they don't. Because it's still like 89 degrees, you know, the rain's kind of refreshing in a way. But yeah, the same big drops. I mean, if it was hailstones, you know, I wouldn't be here to tell you the story.
Right.
You know, with thunderstorms, hail can come, you know, because of the confluence of ice and cold and warm. And,
Yeah, they were calling for tornadoes here yesterday, possibly, and I don't know if any did pop up. I haven't seen the news, but yeah, they were calling for them. Possibility.
Okay, well, weather around the world. London is 59 and clear. Paris is 61 and clear. Rome, Italy. I guess there's another Rome somewhere, probably in Texas. You know, they got a Paris, Texas.
Rome, New York.
I'm sure they
Got
have
one right here.
Oh, yeah. Rome.
About an hour down the
Italy.
road for me.
Rome in Italy is 70 and clear. San Francisco is 65 and clear. Los Angeles, 67 and clear. Dallas, 74 and clear. Kansas City, Missouri, 61 and clear. And New York is 75 and mostly cloudy. I guess
Wow.
it's getting humid there.
Wow. Yeah.
Okay. Well, and that is your weather from around the world and weather from our local satellites.
Yeah.
Even though the mothership is, you know, where it is.
Right.
Oh, well, we're not burned to a nuclear crisp, so we can glory in being alive for one more day, or at least part of one. You never know what might happen. You know, it's hard to plan. I can understand how actuaries are really uncertain how they can like score, you know, their tables.
Right.
When they don't know if they're going to get paid or not through the Affordable Care Act.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know, it's really, well, wait a second. I mean, the whole business model is predicated upon uncertainty. And Trump goes, or it's predicated on certainty. And Trump goes, certainty? I don't cotton to certainty. I'm in real estate. Oh, actually, in real estate, they love certainty. You know, the certainty of, you know, being able to exclude certain demographic, racial groups from being able to buy a house.
Right. Right.
You know, if they could have that back, maybe that's what he's looking for. He keeps talking about going back to the 50s. You know, that was a common practice then. CC&Rs that kept out your Jewish friends.
Yeah, I'd say
Sometimes
as late as the late 60s even. Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes from even visiting. So,
Right.
you know,
Right, exactly.
or as like, you know, Trump said, the good old days. Okay.
Yeah.
We know about that. Well, these are the issues we will be attending to today because we better hurry up. We have Chris Reeves, of course. It is Tuesday.
Yes.
Hey, Wink, probably because they have survived for almost 3,500 years and are a perennial favorite of Americans. Trump is going to kill off the Sequoia redwoods.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We don't need those.
I don't know. Maybe Tillerson sat with Putin and they looked at a map. And Putin said, that used to be ours. All that stretch was ours. I mean, you even have a river called the Russian River. I mean, come on. And Tillerson said, well, make me a deal.
Yeah.
All right. In another attempt to sabotage the Affordable Care Act, the Trump administration will defray the costs of Florida refusing Medicaid expansion. Okay. And Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross was coy about whether Trump had chocolate cake during the Syrian missile strike after dinner entertainment. Yeah, he told a group of right-wing billionaires that really the missile strike was set up for after dinner entertainment for Trump.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So I know he doesn't smoke cigars, so I don't think there was cognac and cigars.
No.
Though you never know. You never know. G.W. Bush said he gave up drinking, and he'd come out every morning with a puffiest face, like he was on another binge. I'm serious. I don't know about this guy, Trump.
Yeah.
I think he's still doing the Studio 54 stuff, where they had they had actual grooves probably where they could line up their cocaine on the tables, to keep it, nice and orderly and stuff, little guide grooves. Maybe, I don't know. I'm just making it up, but I wouldn't doubt it. Okay, I did preface it for the last half. We will be visiting with Chris Reeves, also known as Tom Servo 433, affectionately, by the way, on all social media. We're going to have a discussion on, how the meta attacks against each other, against we Democrats, is not focusing on immediate action that is needed. Well, like now. Otherwise, it wouldn't be immediate, right?
Yeah.
Technology products will see dramatic price increases thanks to Trump. Now, I don't know. Maybe the technology product manufacturers like that. Rest of us, not so much. Oh, and, Wink, they didn't call Andrew Jackson a genocidal maniac because they were being polite. Oh, no.
Right.
Okay. All that plus the Connect Unite Act Daily Coast Community Calendar and more on the after show with that ever so fine fellow over there on the East Coast with his attendant, East Coastal elitism. And right-wingers, be afraid because, it might be the Illuminati right behind him coming in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
And his name is Wink. And this guy all the way back over here on the West Coast with my barely restrained elitism. Of no particular geographical definition. And my name is Justice, and we do this 5 days a week for an hour-ish in the specific, particular, specific, and peculiar tear in the fabric of space-time, because who loves you, baby?
Yeah.
All right. Andrew Jackson. He loves his Andrew Jackson. He loves his Andrew Jackson. He loves him.
Yeah.
And he loves Duterte. Oh, yeah. I wish I could kill people. I wish I could go out on a ride, kill people. Duterte says, come to the Philippines. You can do that. Trump says, well, I'm building a tower there. Ivanka's there right now hawking her products. Duterte says, I think a ride along is perfectly warranted then. Whenever you visit, come on over. Okay, well, that could be. Because he loves his strong men, right? He even wants to meet Kim Jong-un. I feel sorry for him. I feel sorry for him. He was only a 27-year-old kid. And, he had to protect himself from all these generals who wanted to kill him. And he survived by killing them, feeding them literally to the dogs. Trump goes, man, I want to do that. It's funny, when Trump watches gladiator movies, he doesn't see himself as Russell Crowe, right?
Right.
He sees himself as Joaquin Phoenix. I'm just saying.
No, there you go. Yeah.
He wants to be that guy. I don't know. Look at the way Joaquin Phoenix treated his sister, and Trump treats his. We won't go there, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Trump wants to kill off the Sequoia redwoods. People like the Sequoia redwoods. We have to get rid of them. They just get in the way of, a par 4 with a dog leg. Come on. But think about I don't know. I think you should incorporate the Sequoia redwoods in one of the most astounding golf courses ever designed by man.
It could easily happen. Never thought about
Could
that.
be. It's out of Crooks and Liars by the fabulous, the wonderful, the legendary Nicole Bell. Think about this. Those giant sequoias, estimated at being between 2,000 and 3,500 years old. I go for the 3,500 years old. That's a nice round number to me. Were growing along the California coast at the same time that the ancient Greeks were building their empire. They have survived fires, earthquakes, the development of America, and especially the development of California, droughts, pestilence, and all manner of natural disasters. But they may not survive the Trump administration. And I would put in this reporter's opinion, the greatest natural and unnatural disaster in the history of humankind. Big league. Big league. Big league, big league. Big league. Environmentalists and outdoor recreation industry aren't standing for President Donald. Oh, I'm sorry. She's quoting here. And we don't use the P word. It's right in the Netroots Radio style manual. He shall be referred to by his name. And he is. One name, Donald Trump's new executive order that threatens to rescind, shrink, or resize dozens of recent national monument designations, including 7 in California. It requires Secretary of Interior Ryan Zinke to review national monument designations that are over 100,000 acres and created under Obama, Clinton, and G.W. Bush. Really now? Trump argues that some national monument designations may create barriers achieving energy independence. Really? The 7 national monument designations in California are the aforementioned Giant Sequoia, Berryessa Snow Mountain, Carrizo Plain. That's the ground zero for the big super bloom in California, by the way, of all the wildflowers. It just, it's like a once-in-a-100-year event. The San Gabriel Mountains, that's actually home of the Mount Wilson Observatory. Oh, which Edwin Hubble used extensively. That's why it's called the Hubble Observatory. But even more fun than that is there's Bear Creek. And that was one of our Boy Scout destinations. And we'd hike up Bear Creek to the top of the San Gabriel Mountains and camp along the way. I was a patrol leader doing that. That was fun. I love that. 11, 12 years old. Okay. Oh, and also Santa Rosa and San Jacinto Mountains and Mojave Trails. Lest you think that Trump is being particularly punitive towards California, since it went so heavily for Clinton in the Electoral College, a portion of the Grand Canyon in Arizona is also in danger, but it's only the kind that people like to go to. People like that? Let's destroy it. Okay. Nicole continues, sadly, there's no consideration to putting in solar farms, which could be a boon in California's sunny climate. Heck, it's working in cloudy Germany. It worked beautifully and lovely. Most beautiful solar array in all the world. But no. And it might even work especially well in the San Jacinto Mountains or the Mojave Desert. No, silly liberal. Trump wants to move their national monument status for oil and gas exploration. All those beautiful and biodiverse habitats destroyed for oil and gas drilling. Now go ahead and tell me there's not a dime's bit of difference between Trump and Hillary. I dare you. And that's in that reporter's opinion. but it's still probably in this one's too.
They're no different. She's a warmonger. She'll just like roll over for the fossil fuel industry. I have to vote for Trump because he like speaks to me.
And now they're saying,
Yeah.
I think I made a mistake.
yeah, you
yes.
certainly did. And of course, we all said it was a mistake. Well, some of us. But
Yes, yes.
okay, we'll get into that with Chris, and it's probably wrong for me or wrong of me to harp on it a little bit, but I don't know.
That's not going
I
away.
noticed.
Yeah,
I
know
noticed most. I noticed most of the so-called progressive types that decided to vote for Trump. Let's just say that they're not black. Okay, let's put it that way. If you had listened, if we had listened to black women for the last 2 to 3 years, none of this would have happened. But no, just push them aside. They were right again. They are batting 1,000%.
Yep.
This is what black women said. If they tell you what they are, that's what they are. Speaking of which, the Trump administration will defray the cost of Florida refusing Medicaid expansion, and the administration's deal with Florida has implications for the rest of the country. Yeah, it's called sabotage, and this is by Casey Quinlan out of Think Progress. A policy change by the Trump administration will effectively subsidize Florida's decision not to expand Medicaid coverage under the Affordable Care Act in a deal that could set a national precedent. I love this. He wants to stop trade among the United States, the states and the assorted states in the United States, but open them up with North Korea. Because, he's negotiating a deal. You know why Florida was denied a federal defraying of costs for not expanding Medicaid? Because it was a punishment for not expanding Medicaid. All right. So they got a checklist. What did the black president do? And we will do the opposite. He fired Mike Flynn. We hire Mike Flynn. He attacked Putin. We embrace Putin. He said that military strongmen like Duterte are a scourge on the body politic of the world and echo from a time of violence and death and should be shunned. And he said, the black guy said that? Well, let's invite him in the White House and we'll show him no corners in the Oval Office. There's no corners there. Come on. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm going off, aren't I? The federal government has made a deal with Florida to provide more money for state hospitals to treat uninsured people, which the previous administration would never have approved. That was according to the New York Times. So it must be true. Of course it is. This time. The Obama administration argued that if Florida simply expanded Medicaid, fewer people would be uninsured, which means there would be less uncompensated care. So you don't need to have the extra money to care for uninsured people because, well, they'll be cared for. And Florida said, wait a second. I'm the governor, Rick Scott. And, taking over payments from the federal government is what I do. It's my business model. They made me pay the biggest fine in the history of organized healthcare because of it, even. Come on. So if you don't give him the money, he can't do what he wants with it. Can't have that. Republican state lawmakers in Florida have fiercely opposed Medicaid expansion for the past 4 years. You know, when the black guy was in office. Although the State House has proposed huge cuts to hospitals at the time of the deal, Representative Carlos Trujillo, the House Budget Chairman, said he would not promise the federal money would alleviate those cuts. He said the funds could allow lawmakers to focus on tax cuts or building up the state's reserve accounts. Wait a second. Reserve accounts? There's no such thing in Republican economics. You spend that stuff. And in fact, you spend more than is there. And then blame liberals for their lascivious lifestyle, wanton, just unrestrained, unrestricted. They're just spending money right and left to get free stuff in the process. Talk about. Okay, from day one, the Trump administration took steps to sabotage Obamacare by shortening the open enrollment period, doing less advertising and outreach, and weakening the individual mandate. Yes, they have. And some states have filing deadlines as early as this month for insurers to submit qualified health plan applications to remain in the state insurance marketplaces. But when insurers met with the administration last month, it refused to make commitments on continuing the payments. But according to the Kaiser Family Foundation poll released in April, 61% of the public say Trump and Republicans in Congress are to blame for future problems with the ACA since they are in control of the government. Damn right. 61%, Wink. 61%. I'm not a big fan of Wilbur Ross. I consider Wilbur Ross to be a mobbed-up middleman at best. Got some really nice slippers, though. 20,000.
Yeah.
Got he has the Commerce Secretary seal on him. Very nice.
Yep.
This is by Shisha Ghosh out of the International Business Times. Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross characterized the U.S. airstrikes on Syria early in April as, quote, after-dinner entertainment for Donald Trump, end quote. While speaking Monday at the Milken Institute Global Conference at the Beverly Hilton in Beverly Hills, California. You know, Milken, the guy that did the toxic loans and, the poison pill and the hostile takeovers, and he went to jail over it. They honor him now. Actually, that's part of his penance. You go into this, you play tennis for a few years at this resort prison, and then when we let you out, you have to put on these conferences in your name so you can talk about how great business is and how you shouldn't cheat. Wink, wink. I'm winking my eye, not saying your name, Wink. I'm sorry. During the speech, Ross recalled the scene with the president, or with Trump at Mar-a-Lago on April 6th, with the Chinese president. And they were interrupted by the missile strike on Syria, and Trump explained the incident to Jinping. Oh, that's where they had the cake. They did have the chocolate cake, Wink.
At Mar-a-Lago? Yeah.
It was the most beautiful chocolate cake in all the world.
Yeah.
And that's when he said they sent the missiles into Iraq. And Bartolomeo said, oh, you mean Syria? And he goes, whatever.
Yeah, one of those, yeah.
All right. Well, it was just after dinner entertainment. You're not going to remember every step in the little dance, song and dance. All right. All right, let's get to our Jim Hightower break, and we'll come back and go through the Connect Unite Act Daily Codes community calendar and have a discussion with Chris Reeves. You are listening to the After Show on Netroots Radio with Wink and Justice, and we will be right back.
In addition to news, which involves reporting on real stuff, there's now fake news, stuff that's completely made up. But wait, the barons of corporate news are also adding to today's tumultuous state of journalism by putting out BS news. stuff they know is untrue but is reported because it advances their owner's political agenda. For example, the Washington Post, owned by Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos, who's a laissez-faire promoter of privatizing government functions, keeps publishing a load of BS to denigrate our post offices. In an alarmist editorial, the paper declared the U.S. Postal Service continues to hemorrhage red ink. Embracing Bezos' privatization ideology, the editors grumped that postal unions have made our mail service outmoded and insolvent, running up, quote, a net loss of $5.6 billion last year. That is pure bovine excrement, and the editors know it. In fact, thanks to innovative and efficient postal workers, the mail agency racked up a $610 million operating profit last year and a $1.2 billion profit the year before. The $5 billion in red ink that the paper's propagandists pointed to is nothing but a bookkeeping hoax created by Congress to make people believe our post office is a hopeless money loser that must be privatized. In 2006, Congress manufactured an artificial loss for the Postal Service by decreeing that it pre-fund the health care costs of future retirees 75 years in advance. That includes retirees who are not even born yet. No other agency and no corporation, including Amazon, could survive if Congress added a $5 billion a year fictitious loss to their books. This is Jim Hightower saying, yet, in a shameful piece of BS journalism, the Washington Post intentionally ignored the true story.
Need an antidote to the progressive blues? Want some good news about how grassroots folks are rebelling against the corporate powers and winning? Well, here's an easy-to-swallow pill for you, the Hightower Lowdown. Hightower's monthly newsletter will give you the lowdown, even as it lifts you up. It's 4 pages a month, jam-packed with facts you can use, actions you can take, and Jim's own Texas humor, all for only $15 a year. To become a lowdowner, go to hightowerlowdown.org.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
Okay, we're back.
And indeed, we are back. And thank you for sticking with us. This is the after show of Week in Justice. Justice here along the banks of the Rogue River, in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the West Coast. Wink is in upstate New York, 21 on the East Coast. Chris Reeves is in the vast plains of the Midwest. Our crew are the ethereal creatures who, for our purposes, are going to reside in the cloud and whose advanced intergalactic technical abilities allow Netroots Radio, and thus by extension the after show, to span the globe, the solar system, out past the Oort cloud, and beyond, because we believe it to be true.
Heck yeah.
Yep. Okay, today's Connect Unite Act Daily Codes Community Diary is facilitated by the great cartoonist and illustrator Eric Lewis, and he asks, what Daily Codes groups do you belong to? And I actually belong to quite a few. Of course, I contribute the poetry editing part for Black Codes weekly, sometimes twice weekly. And I belong to a few other groups too. So yeah, go to the diary and discuss that, because part of the evolving platforms is the ability for groups to form with the idea that interest and locality,
Exactly. Yep.
I think, would foster, how do they call it? Connection,
Yeah. connection.
uniting, and
Yeah.
acting.
Yeah. All that.
All right. Wisconsin Cossacks, speaking of which, are forming their group, so Cosme will Chris the Colladem to do that. If you'd like to be a Wisconsin Cossack, I would think even if you're not in Wisconsin, but you have an affinity for more than just cheddar cheese,
Yeah.
they might embrace you.
It's possible.
Asheville Cossacks are meeting up on Saturday, May 6th. Wow, that's this Saturday from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Salvage Station 466, as in 466. Riverside Drive in Asheville. Cosmeo Randall to RSVP. The third annual Glacier National Park meetup will occur June 30th through July 2nd. Thinking Fella and Ojibwa are organizing. Get a hold of them, and they're going to direct you to a diary that you need to read, because it ain't just any kind of camping. Just let you know. And the Netroots Nation annual Daily Co's annual Cheers and Cheers dinner will be occurring this year Wednesday, August 9th at 5:30 p.m. in the grand and lovely and beautiful city of Atlanta. Might be a little humid, but it's still okay.
Oh, yeah.
And Cosmeo Navajo to RSVP for a seat at the table. And that is your Connect, Unite, Act Daily Coast community calendar for the 2nd of May. Ah, man, pretty soon it'll be official. Some people are violating the rule, but pretty soon we will officially be able to wear, like our tan slacks.
Oh, yeah.
Can't do it before Memorial Day. Just let you know.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, Chris, are you celebrating spring still, or are you embracing that summer is here and fashion be damned?
Well, it's right now I'm just at home in sweats. How about that? That's about as good as it gets for me.
There you go. That's what I'm talking about.
No, I saw a young woman, and she has these really quite lovely. I have to call them Easter egg blue, sort of like a purple blue fingernail color. She says, "Oh, this is so old. This is from Easter." And I'm all, looks rather spring-like. I like it.
Yeah.
But no, she had to change them already because the season has changed.
Yeah, that's what happens.
I guess, yeah.
Okay, so thank you once again for joining us. I know you're quite busy.
Oh, absolutely.
But I like to think that what we're doing is still an extension of finding and electing more and better Democrats. So with that in mind, I wanted us to go back to a diary that you penned on Thursday. Oh, I'm sorry. How do I do this? Okay, maybe that did it. I didn't mean to do that. Okay, and where you called it sort of like some Thursday ranting, but I didn't consider it necessarily ranting. But why don't we revisit that for a bit, because there's some meta going on, and I guess it's evolved to the chicken and egg thing. Like, you started it. No, you started it. I think that's where we are right now. And but we have some immediate concerns. And why don't we revisit that a bit, and I'll let you speak about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that we run into pretty frequently is that we get into this back and forth of I don't even know how to kind of explain this, but we run into a back and forth of, oh, this is what we should do, this is not what we should do, blah blah, that's who's at fault, whatever's at fault, and the only thing that I can ever say to that is just, yeah, great. Yeah, I mean, there isn't.
Maybe I simplified it too much, because I think really what it is that both sides want an apology, and we're arguing about, and some of us on the outside are arguing like, well, who wants the apology more? I mean, it's just so it's fairly infantile, But do we? I mean, you've said this before. I mean, it's fairly fruitless to relitigate an election. I mean, we have immediate elections that we need to attend to. We have regulatory concerns that are being rammed down our throats.
Right.
And so I would posit that the divide and conquer strategy pretty much benefits a side that is not us.
Indeed.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, no, you're absolutely right. Look, the greatest problem that we have right now, and people look at the graphs, they want to make tons out of, oh, these people like these people, this is the problem with this. And we have a tendency to over-extrapolate. I've seen this, and I had to put this in perspective for somebody who put out there, oh, well, look at all these people who don't like the Democratic Party. I say, well, look at all these people who don't like the Republican Party. And there's a reason for that. Because they don't ever vote for the party. They vote for the candidate. You know, I mean, it's one thing where at one point Congress's approval rating was hovering around 10%. And yet, did 90% of incumbents lose their office? No. Why? Because people will come back and they'll say, but you know what? I like my congressperson. And you know, it's everybody else who's wrong. And this is one of the things that we forget when we look at these lists. I'm kind of enamored right now with the posts and things that I see that say things like, you know, last week we got into this on Daily Kos and elsewhere of, 60% of Democrats are unhappy and they want national party change and whatever. And I want to say, okay, well, first, what change do they want? And 67% of people as a whole really boils down to basically every Republican, and then some of the independents. So and again, they're unhappy with the party at whole, not that they're unhappy with individual people. And we forget this. No race is run in this way. More importantly, if your goal is to change that, if your goal is to say, we need change, whatever, there is no institutional changing it at the institutional level accomplishes nothing. Those people, you know, they aren't the people who change the way your life works. Meanwhile, who you elect to office is the difference. Does this make sense?
No, it makes perfect sense.
I'm reminded of this recently near here. There was a huge debate amongst several people who wanted to primary Claire McCaskill. Like, Claire McCaskill's too conservative. Maybe true. Maybe she's fairly conservative. But then again, I will bet you that there are tons of people in Missouri who will say, wow, she's way too liberal, that right. Which is all the conservatives who just elected their own governor in those. So no matter who the individual is, you're going to make some people unhappy. The solution is, do you make just enough people unhappy that you've got more happy people to elect somebody who can affect change?
Now, didn't you mention in your diary that some of the complaints or criticisms about certain candidates would come from people outside the district? You know, I mean, like, for instance, I mean, there was always this national belief that Feinstein, you know, is a flaming liberal, but in the Bay Area, she's considered to be anything but, for good or ill.
Right.
But I'm just saying that you know, these proclamations don't ever take into consideration how the local people who are voting that person or not voting that person into office feel.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Well, it's one of those that all the time I will see this. So I was in South Dakota this last weekend. Of course, it's not that I wasn't that close to North Dakota, but same general markets. I was in Wyoming and Montana a couple weeks ago. And I'll hear all the time on different liberal blogs, and people will say, oh, we hate that Heidi Heitkamp. Oh, that Heidi Heitkamp. And I will just say, well, do any of you live in North Dakota? You know, is this one where do North Dakotans hate her? Because the answer is probably no. Now, there are times I'm really frustrated with Heidi Heitkamp. But does that mean I don't have a vote in it? So this is the thing. We are not every representative represents their district, their Senate seat, their state. They don't represent where. And so there are some candidates who can do, say, and be whatever in District X, and they couldn't do that in District Y. And one of the best examples of that is, John Bell Edwards last year won Louisiana, and we were very happy that he won Louisiana because it's very good for us on lots of issues, Medicaid expansion, other things. But if he had ran anywhere else than Louisiana, people would be screaming about how conservative he is. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's just one where you just got to go, well, but he represents a state. His state was happy. That's what they wanted. And all you can do on those kind of issues is work to slowly change the mentality of what's productive in that state. But it's not something that you can just overnight say, oh, screw this guy, let's oust this guy. That doesn't work. You don't have candidates. You don't have infrastructure to do it. So that just doesn't. It will not ever work out that way.
Let me ask a meta question on this meta argument thing. Now, just to qualify, I prefer a more robust approach to expounding democratic principles. Part of that is that I used to, even before I understood what the adults were talking about, I would hear, the weak-kneed liberal, right? And when push came to shove, it's like, well, I'm not going to let a black date my sister, kind of, well, just like a weak-kneed liberal, right? So I remember thinking I wanted to be anything but. So why is it so hard for us in the Democratic Party just to admit that the Republicans cheat? They always cheat. And if this were a poker game and the Republicans were cheating at poker every time, are we going to turn the pistols on Hillary because she allowed the guy to cheat? It doesn't make any sense. Why can't we just admit they cheat, and we just cannot let that happen again instead of blaming the person who got cheated?
One of the things that's really kind of troubling is we have a real problem in wanting to turn the pistols on ourselves. I have yet to be, so I've been to 6 or 7 different state meetings this year, and I've yet to go to one where I don't have at least one person come up to me and say, you know how we fix this party? We get rid of this other Democrat. It's the first words, it's not, let's beat a Republican. It's not, hey, we need to change this or that. It's always, how do we get rid of this Hillary lover? How do we get rid of this Bernie person? And I'm just like, that's not a solution. That in the long term, that's not very effective.
Well, let me ask you something else that I saw. Maybe you were too busy to catch these news discussions, but I heard a discussion, maybe it might have been on Tweety. Oh, I'm sorry, Chris Matthews. They were talking about the change in the Democratic Party will come from people who are not in the Democratic Party. And I was wondering about that. And I think what they were trying to get is, since, we are big tent, that the younger, they're throwing around the term millennial, whatever that means. Okay. Because I think it means something a little bit different what they were calling millennial. But regardless, young people who have maybe no affiliation to left and right, either through lack of understanding, experience, or disdain, just pure disdain. Like I grew up wanting to be a more robust Democrat than what we were accused of. Okay.
Right.
But the way it was being posited is that the Democratic Party is dead. And that really bothered me from a supposed stalwart Democrat.
It's the easiest take to say that. Okay. The easiest thing to ever do if you want to get press, And I've had somebody recently accuse me of being such an insider and whatever, blah blah. But if I wanted, if my end goal was popularity and tons of people reading what I write or whatever, the easiest way to do that would just be to say bad things about the party. Oh, the party's terrible, whatever. I'd get tons of reads. I would have tons and tons of people, comment. I could occupy the rec list every day if I wrote something else and I just tore apart some other Democrat, because I know that's what people want to read. But it's not right. And the problem is that, we get into a habit of saying those kind of things, and then we get into a habit of saying, oh, well, change will come from the outside because look at how terrible the inside is. The vast majority, the overwhelming majority of people in the party want to do the right thing. There are times we have to step back and say, ooh, this didn't work, and we have to be critical of each other. But there's a big difference between being critical and saying, here's how we get better, and by the way, I'm going to be part of that solution, and positing, this is all terrible, burn the whole thing down. We forget that right before the election, we had some people, and I've kept some bookmarks on this stuff, who were telling me, oh, maybe it'd be good if Trump wins because, it'll cause, a rebirth of liberal ideas and whatever, blah, blah, all this nonsense. And how has that worked out? It really hasn't worked out. It's worked out terribly for everybody that Trump wants to damage. So we have to step back at some time and realize there comes a point where we are far enough past, the election, that we have to look critically at what we do and don't do, be willing to say, hey, this was a mistake, this was a good idea, but not ever turn those into, and this is why those people are terrible, or this is into the ad hominem attacks that we're currently on the road of, because the people that we're attacking will not be on the ballot box in the districts that we're voting in. Nobody who's listening to this, and nobody in any state in the 50 states will ever vote on Tom Perez for anything in 2 years. It's not going to happen. They aren't going to vote for, unless you're in Keith Ellison's district, you're not voting for Keith Ellison. Unless you're in Elizabeth Warren's district, you're not voting for anybody but for her, and likely you like her. Likely you like all these people if you were in their district. So we got to knock this off of, we got to focus on the process, not the people. How do we make the process better? How do we get better at this without, burning people up?
I agree with that. Hey, let's speak quickly about what I call possible dramatic price increases in technology products, because I want to give more than just a few minutes to the Andrew Jackson history. But now, of course, we as consumers will look at price increases on our devices as not being a good thing, but maybe the manufacturers will?
Okay, so the Trump administration rattled the saber at South Korea and said, our trade deal is no good. Now, the trade deal does many things. Now, in regards to technology, there's some exemptions and intellectual properties and those kind of things. But the companies that own them, Hynix, Samsung, LG, all these companies with huge footprints in South Korea are very diverse. And so saber rattling about undoing that deal impacts their bottom line directly. So how do they make that money back? Well, prepare for them to look for price increases. What price increases would help them most and are easiest to integrate? Technology. And we're not talking about small things. Most of these are major memory manufacturers and what uses memory. Everything from your dishwasher to, your car, all that stuff. And so Trump saber rattling is already causing some of those entities to say, hey, how do we make sure we get the money now when demand is high and people aren't going to go away from the demand? People aren't going to stop buying phones. So how do they make their profits today? Well, prices can go up. And the more Trump saber rattles about let's start renegotiating deals, and the more they're concerned about market reality 6 months from now, the more likely it is that they say, okay, time has come for us to get our money now.
I also figure
And,
that. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, I'm just saying it's just generally a bad deal for consumers.
Well, I also figure that Trump doesn't do anything unless he can possibly benefit by it personally. So with his branding acumen, I don't know. Will people really want to buy a product that says "Memory" by Trump? Or Trump Inside? I don't know. I don't know if that was going to work. But this is saber rattling, but this is a scary kind of saber rattling. Prices will increase if we're able to buy the products. If there's not a big what do they call it? Electromagnetic pulse.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Well, we're not so worried about that, but we are worried about what happens next.
All right.
Driving up the consumer price index is not good.
I have always been accustomed, and my dad's a fairly renowned historian, and it seemed fairly common in our household while sitting around the dinner table in our Rockwell repose, referring to Jackson as that genocidal maniac. I mean, and it wasn't a compliment, but apparently it's a compliment to the fellow sitting in the Oval Office right now.
Mm-hmm.
And why was he called a genocidal maniac? We only know the Trail of Tears, but why don't we bone up on some Andrew Jackson history here?
Well, Andrew Jackson has went in and out of favor in many places. It's one where in the South for a long time, Democrats had several dinners that were Jefferson Jackson, but in the Midwest and West and the North, that was never really a thing. It was just never a thing in Missouri, never a thing in Kansas, certainly never a thing really in Oklahoma, where most of their events are named after local Democratic guys. But Donald Trump has suddenly become affixed to ascribing all things good to Andrew Jackson. Oh, if Andrew Jackson, he was this and that. And he's made three, we're really focused on his comment that Andrew Jackson would have negotiated his way out of the Civil War.
Right.
Which is ridiculous. We were not, the only way you would have negotiated your way out of the Civil War is if you would have said, okay, slavery can move to the West.
Well, that's what he means.
And that would have stopped the Civil War, but guess what? That would have been horrible for our country.
Yeah.
So you've got that going on. But the other two comments he's made about Andrew Jackson have also been really troubling. Things about, Andrew Jackson fought bitter campaigns, but came through it. That's kind of an understatement. And his statement about, Andrew Jackson's role in a peaceful America beforehand. Yeah, that's not really the case either, because you're not just talking about Trail of Tears. You're talking about, Andrew Jackson is famous for, we had prior made agreements with Native Americans in Georgia and Florida, and Andrew Jackson is famous for basically breaking those, for just saying, "Hey, this is not what's going to happen." I cite Reverend Everett in that diary, who was the one who pointed out, "Hey, we're giving our word to these people, and then we turn around and we don't do it." And the comparison between that and the way Trump has handled the issue of a ban on Muslims, and I don't care what he says, it is, if it's not a ban on Muslims, it's a ban to stop Muslims. That's one of those comedy relief moments of Trump trying to pretend it's something that it isn't, is a really eerie parallel, but his lack of understanding of history is terrifying. It's there should be some assumption when you take the Oval Office that you have some understanding of, this is what this is. This is the kind of office that I'm moving into, and this is the history. And Trump not only doesn't know, he doesn't seemingly have any interest in knowing.
It just seems like opposite world. Or is this part of I don't know, we're getting into a psychoanalysis, I suppose, too much here, but it it does seem eerie in how everything is opposite. This also comes on the heels of, the gross criticism of Lincoln, which we would only hear from like fringe people in the South, right?
Right. No, you're right.
I mean, even in the South, dissing on Lincoln was pretty fringe. And so it is very, to me, more than troubling. But I'm not so convinced it's out of incompetence, but maybe some sort of weird spite. I don't know. It's like anything that we consider to be an American institution of right and wrong. Well, that's suspect because that's from the liberal tradition, and liberal is a bad word. I don't know what is it? I'm sorry. We could speak for another week about this. I'm sorry.
It is troubling, and it's just one where you just kind of go, okay, I'm not even really sure what I get into,
Right. Well, we're into our buffer period now, but it wasn't wrong to call Andrew Jackson a genocidal maniac. I mean, we hear about the Trail of Tears with the Cherokee, but his approach and policies were fairly expansive across many tribes.
Right.
And this is one other thing that gets under my craw is that certainly many administrations broke treaties with Native Americans, but if my remembering of this history is correct, Jackson, if not was the first, certainly put it to a level that I guess other successive administrations had to at least equal, I guess. So,
right.
I think there was a list of treaties that he broke during his administration, and it's just astounding. It sounds very reminiscent. I mean, this is another one of those, like Trump has no problem breaking a contract in his own business. So now we're talking about long-term agreements like NATO. It's just okay. I'm sorry, I'm going off.
No, but I know where you're coming from, so I get it.
Well, we're going to have to continue this next week, though, Chris. So I know you got to get out there and get to work doing your good work. So I appreciate you meeting with us this week, and we'll see you next week.
Sounds good.
All right, folks, we better bug out of here. We got, of course, Hartman coming up about 6 minutes after the hour. I have been getting reports that there is weather systems that may be having issues with some of the connections. We've been pumping out, but some of live connections might be affected. So just bear with us. Those are truly acts of God.
Yep.
As we understand it in actuary life. So we'll be back on the air if there's any interruption. And otherwise, stay tuned to Netroots Radio 24/7, 365. And why? Because I'm going to tell you just before Hartman comes up, we'll be listening to Julia by Super Mamba Jumbo. All right, Wink. I will see you on the other side.
All right. Rope.